Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving deep into a really complex world, Washington State's criminal law. We're going to map out the entire journey from the moment of an arrest all the way to a final sentence. So you might be wondering, how does this whole system actually work? Well, it's best to think of it like a journey, and every journey has to start somewhere. For criminal law in Washington, that starting point is the official rulebook that lays out the foundation for every single case. To really get a handle on any system, you've got to know the rules of the game. And in Washington, it's actually pretty straightforward, unlike some places where laws are kind of scattered all over. Here, there's one main source for pretty much everything. And here it is, the Revised Code of Washington, or what everyone calls the RCW. Think of it as the one-stop shop for all criminal laws, especially in Title IXA. This is a huge deal because it means the rules for, say, a theft or an assault are the exact same whether you're in Seattle or clear across the state in Spokane. Okay, so now we know where the laws come from. Let's dig into what they actually say. A key thing to understand is that the law absolutely does not treat all crimes the same. Washington sorts them into three distinct tiers of seriousness. And yeah, as you can probably guess, the stakes get a whole lot higher as you go up the ladder. But hang on a second. Before we even get into the different punishments, let's back up. What does a prosecutor actually have to prove to even call something a crime? It's way more than just, doing something you weren't supposed to do. And here are the ingredients. A prosecutor has to prove all four of these things. Of course, there has to be a voluntary act, and it has to cause some kind of prohibited harm. But look at that second one, a specific mental state. This one is absolutely crucial. It's not just about what you did, but what was going on in your head. Were you trying to do it? Did you know it would happen? Were you just being reckless? That mental piece of the puzzle is often the toughest thing to prove in court. So here's that three-tiered system laid out perfectly. Way up at the top, you've got felonies. We're talking the most serious stuff, like murder. Then you have gross misdemeanors, like a DUI or stalking. And down at the bottom are misdemeanors, things like simple assault. And just look at those maximum penalties. You can really see how different the stakes are at each level. And wow, this number really drives it home. For the most serious felonies, we aren't just talking about prison time. A $50,000 fine on top of that shows you just how massive the financial consequences can be too. Okay, so a crime has been alleged. What happens next? Well, the path from an accusation to a final verdict isn't a free-for-all. It's actually a very specific step-by-step journey through the court system. It all kicks off with an arrest and a prosecutor deciding to file charges. From there, the defendant makes their first appearance in court. That's called an arraignment, and they enter a plea. Then you move into this pre-trial phase, which is all about exchanging evidence and arguing motions. And if a plea deal isn't reached, well, then it's time for a trial. And when a case goes to trial, the defendant has a really big choice to make. They can go with a bench trial, which means a judge and only a judge decides if they're guilty or not, or they can put their fate in the hands of a jury of their peers, who have to all agree unanimously to convict. All right, let's say a person is convicted. What happens then? Well, the sentence isn't just a number that a judge pulls out of thin air. In Washington, it's a very calculated process, and it's all designed to be consistent. That's right. It's basically math. Washington uses a special formula, a grid system, to make sure sentences are fair and predictable. The whole idea is to take as much of the judge's personal opinion out of the equation as possible. And the law behind this whole thing is the Sentencing Reform Act, or SRA. It's really just a two-part equation. The judge takes the seriousness of the crime, plots it on a grid against the defendant's criminal history, and voila! The grid spits out a standard sentencing range. It's a clear, consistent guideline for the judge to follow. Okay, let's get to the final piece of this whole puzzle, the fundamental rights that protect a person every step of the way, and what can happen even after a case is over. These rights are the absolute bedrock of our justice system, right? The right to stay silent, to get a lawyer, to face your accusers. These are non-negotiable protections. But take a look at that last one on the list, because in Washington, it's a really big deal. And this is something you absolutely need to know. The Washington State Constitution gives people a stronger shield for their privacy than even the U.S. Constitution does. This can have a huge impact on a case, affecting everything from police searches to what evidence is even allowed in court. And this is so important. The story doesn't always end with a conviction sticking around forever. For a lot of offenses, the law actually creates a path to get a conviction vacated or a record sealed. This can literally change someone's life, restoring their rights and knocking down huge barriers to getting a job or a place to live. So, what have we learned? Washington's criminal law system, for all its complexity, is really built on a foundation of structure and rules. From that big rule book, the RCW, to that sentencing grid, it's all designed to be a clear roadmap. But it leaves us with a really big question. Does making the route more predictable automatically make the destination more just?